Welcome to the August 2012 app webinar for Corkulous Pro. Corkulous Pro is an interesting organizational program that can be used for organization as well as memory, and I'll give you some examples on how you might be able to use this program in your daily life. Let's take a quick look at the learning objectives. First one is to create a new corkboard. Second, differentiate among the various objects that are available to be placed on the corkboard. Third, to create a nested board, which we'll talk quite a bit about. Fourth, how to share boards via email and as photos. And then fifth, to identify at least 2 ways in which Corkulous Pro can apply in everyday life. Just a little bit about me. My name's Michelle Wild. I do these webinars on a monthly basis. I have a number of years of experience in working with individuals with brain injuries as well as other cognitive issues. The making cognitive connections approach that I've kind of coined is essentially emphasizing the benefits of smart devices as a memory or cognitive prosthetic. I then teach the technical skills necessary to operate the devices, but I also talk about the cognitive skills that are involved so that individuals get a better understanding of the cognitive skills that underlie the technical skills that they're actually learning. And then finally, and in my opinion, one of the most important things is not only focusing on the cognitive skills, but then also how are they going to transfer or apply in your everyday life. So taking a look at how the cognitive skills are used on the device, and then also how those same cognitive skills apply to everyday life. Hopefully this makes my approach practical, concrete, relevant, and most importantly transferable from one area to another. So let's jump right into Corkulous Pro. The Corkulous Pro uses what they call boards, obviously like a cork board. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at how to create new boards, how to edit and name boards, how we can delete boards, and then how we can also store or save the boards that we've created. There are some cognitive connections that are associated with this. Obviously paying attention to detail as you're going through and you're naming boards, planning, categorization, decision making, organization, and also relevant and irrelevant. Relevant and irrelevant really comes into play as we begin to start naming boards, and we want to make sure that the names that we give the boards are relevant to the topic so that we can easily find the information. I'm going to quickly jump to Corkulous Pro. This is the app itself. This is kind of the page that pops up when you first get started. And what I want to show you is just some of the basic aspects of the app and how we can create a new board. So if you look up in the upper right hand corner, you'll see a plus sign. In almost every app that you'll find, the plus sign indicates new or create or something to that effect. So if I tap on the plus sign, it's going to bring up the option of a new board. And you'll see I have the ability to create a blank board, and I also have the ability to import boards if that's what I choose to do. If I go ahead and say blank board, what's going to happen is it creates a new board. You can see it over here on the left-hand side of the screen, and it gives it the name new board. Well, that's not that helpful. So what we want to do then is we actually want to edit that and change the name of the board. So we tap the name of the board. We can then go in and can add some relevant text in terms of the name. So I'm going to go ahead and call this garden, and you'll see why in just a minute. And when I'm done, I'm going to hit the return key, and that will save that particular title. Now one more time, the way I do this is I'm going to come up here from my main screen. Once I've created a corkboard, I'm going to come up to edit, and then that allows me to tap the title, and that allows me then to make whatever changes that I might make. So what you're going to have to do as you start using this, if you choose to use this app, you'll get new boards, you'll be creating new boards quite often, but you're going to have to actually go in and rename them. Once you've renamed the board and you're happy, you can go ahead and go up and hit the Done icon up in the upper right hand side, and now all of our boards have been saved. Another thing I mentioned I wanted to do, I'm going to come back over to the Edit icon, on the upper left hand side, and I have here where it says new board. I actually want to get rid of that board, so I'm going to tap on that board, and you'll see up here in the corner it gives me the option of trashing the board or deleting it, or also I can store it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this particular board so you can see how that works. I'm going to tap the delete icon, and I'm then going to go ahead and tap delete, and so that's how you would delete a board that's been created. Okay. The next thing is, if I tap a board here, the other option is the store object here. So if I come up and I tap on that store object, you'll see I can actually store these cork boards locally on my iPad, or if I want to, I can also store them in the cloud. Now, storing it in the cloud would indicate that I could then be on some other device, an iPhone or an iPod Touch, perhaps something like that, and be able to get access to that particular corkboard. So there's a couple of different ways that you can store the information. One is going to be local to the device that you're currently on. The other is going to be stored in the iCloud system so that you have access to it from a variety of devices. One thing that you can do also, and I'll show you this in just a few minutes, is you can share this information. You can share a board with other people. So it may or may not matter to you where it's actually physically stored. I tend to like to store things in the cloud, especially if I'm going to be accessing the information on a different device like my iPhone, just because it's much easier to get access to that. So I'm going to go ahead and come up here to the Done icon, and let's jump back to PowerPoint, and we'll see what our next. So we've talked about the new boards. We talked about how we can edit and name the boards. We talked about deleting the boards, and we also talked about that storage. Again, storage locally on the device that you're on, or storage in a cloud. So I'm going to come back here, and now we're going to talk about the drawer. The drawer is kind of the essence of Corkulous Pro. The making cognitive connections aspects, attention to detail, visual similarities and differences, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, planning, categorization, decision making, and also organization. Remember, Corkulous Plus is really essentially all about organizing. So, the drawer. The drawer includes several different options. It has labels, notes, tasks, index cards, contacts, photos, and arrow notes. So all of these objects can be placed on a corkboard for organizational memory purposes. I'm going to go ahead and go back to Corkulous Pro now. And in my garden example, I'm going to tap on that to open it. And so you'll see now I have a corkboard. And over here in the lower left-hand corner is the drawer. And if I take my finger and tap and drag out, the drawer actually opens. And so you'll see what I can do is there's different, these are all the objects that I mentioned previously. So if I want to put a picture on here, I'm going to drag a picture up. I can either take a picture with the device that I have, or I can use an existing picture. So I'm going to use an existing picture. I'm going to go to my camera roll, and I'm going to choose this picture right here. So I can move this picture wherever I want within my screen, and you'll see it looks kind of small right now. So if you put your two fingers on the screen and you slide out, you'll see that that's going to zoom you in. So this is actually a picture of some morning glories that I have in my garden in the backyard. And so I have this picture, but sometimes, let's just say, I forget what the names of these are, which is very common. So I can actually take and drag a label here, and I can type in morning glory. And when I'm done, now I can tap this label and I can move it wherever I want within this particular corkboard. So now I have a picture that's going to help me remember, and I have a label for what the name of the flower is. I have these little sticky notes. I can put something on here like perhaps water, let's say 3 times a week. and I can put whatever I want on that particular note. And again, I can tap and drag this note wherever I want. I can also, I have a task list that I can associate with this. So I can say feed in March. If you know anything about gardening, you'll know that I probably am not putting this information in here correctly because I'm just doing it just to give you an example. But I can now kind of identify these tasks. What's really cool about the task list is that if you use this and another app that I've already done a webinar on called Apago To Do, the tasks in this particular program can get automatically imported into Apago To Do. So Feed in March would be something that would automatically go into my task list and can be very effective that way. So once I finish this task, I can put a little check by it. That tells me that I've done my job for this particular plant, and I can move on to some other plant. I can also, if I want to, add an index card here. So I can include whatever else I want, something like purchased at Green Thumb. We have a place called Green Thumb around here. And so now I have all this information associated with this one plant. I can then, if I can have a flag if I want, and I can put a little flag here, and I can say, you know, perfect example of a bud or something like that. If I could type and spell, that would help. Perfect. So here's my perfect example of a bud, and you'll see I've used a number of the various options that are available to me. If I want to, I can zoom back out so that I can now see where that one picture is on my corkboard. Next thing I can do if I want is I can add another picture. Just a second, I'm having a... So I can add another picture, an existing picture, and this time I'm going to do this picture, and so this is a ficus tree that I have in my backyard. And so I'm going to kind of move things around, and all I'm doing is tapping and holding with my finger in order to move the objects where I want them. So this time I'm going to add a new label. I'm going to call this ficus tree. Oops. I might not have spelled that right, but you'll get the point, I hope. So there's my ficus tree. And again, I can go through and add all the other objects that we've talked about. Another thing that I can do if I want is I can add a contact. So for instance, let's say that I have a friend that is very knowledgeable about ficus trees. I can tap on the contact. I can add a new contact. Let's just say this is Betty. And I could put her information in here, her phone number in here, and a picture of her if I wanted to. And now I know that Betty is going to be my contact if I end up having any questions about my ficus tree. Does that kind of make sense how this could be used?
Yeah.
Good. So as we go through this, you could use this for, this is just a gardening example. You could also use it for, I just got back from Colorado. I was on a trip to Colorado, and it's kind of part business, part vacation, and got to go to Red Rocks and Garden of the Gods and a number of very nice places. And so I have pictures from all those places. I could create a corkboard of my Colorado vacation and include pictures, include little notes about who I was there with and what we did. And it just makes it kind of a really nice memory tool, but it's also a great organizational tool as well, as I hope you can see. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my PowerPoint presentation.